So
That's why it's on the agenda.
that's right.
That needs explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you want to, I mean, uh, Ben, you just want to take it away, once we kick off with the agenda?
Yeah. Yep. As soon as as soon as you're ready to go, I'll hand it over.
So do you think we should everybody's here that's going to be here?
I think so. You want to just go
Okay.
for it, Galen?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. All right. Rachel, are we live? Or Raquel? Sorry, Raquel.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Um, I'd like to call this meeting of the school building HVAC project committee to order. It is 8:02 on May the 7th. First order of business would be the approval of prior minutes for April 1st, 2025. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
All right, I guess I'll second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion passes. And then we do have a lot of exciting news today with Daniel Hand rooftop unit replacement, news on Polson, and then some invoices. And at this point, for the rooftop unit, like a project update from Ben Whitaker. Ben, why don't you go ahead and run the show?
Sure. I'm going to share my screen real quick. So the news on the Hand HVAC project is our 9 rooftop units have actually showed up. I actually went down to the Riggers Yard in Waterbury a couple weeks ago, and that is what they look like.
Wow.
They are massive. Like when you see them on the roof, they look a lot smaller. But when they're down on the ground level,
Is that one unit that we're looking at?
that is 1 out of 9.
That is amazing.
So they were actually taking that one off the truck when I got there. So the units are there. All the curbs are there, which is the transition piece. When they pull the old unit off, the new units are a little bit different size. The ductwork doesn't line up exactly. So you have this curb that the new unit sits on that they reduct everything underneath it. So those are all here. So because they're all here, we have an invoice for them all being here. And that is the $2.1 million you'll see at the in the invoice package. I've already prepped finance that's coming because when I was in charge of finance and somebody presented a $2 million invoice to me, my head exploded because there was some cash management that had to happen on the other side. So they have a heads up. So really good. We have a pre-construction meeting scheduled to take place. I believe it's on the 19th, the 21st, a couple weeks, where we'll get everybody on site and just formalize our plan for rigging and our laydown areas and all that kind of good stuff. But the project is on track to start as soon as school gets out. Half the building we're going to keep online for a couple days because there's an ALICE training taking place over there. So we'll focus on the other side to begin with. But everything is lined up. Our breakers are in stock. Those are also part of that invoice, all the new circuit breakers for these units. So we're good to go.
Wow. We should invite Bill for like a ceremonial delivery of the units so all of his work and misery can be seen.
We can take that off as epitaph.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
great. That's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So the other project is Polson's HVAC, auditorium, gym, electrical, and everything, all of our collective year 1 improvements. So a lot of action going on there too. So the 2 main things is one is Gilbane has gone out and done the advanced procurement invitation to bid. Those bids are actually being opened tomorrow at 1 p.m. So we're looking forward to seeing that. That is for the generator itself, the 1.5 megawatt generator, and the main switch gear. So that's what's happening tomorrow with that. And what we have now, we're kind of at a little bit of a landmark moment here because Gilbane has formalized their proposal for kind of our new strategy, if you will, for the building. And Nick can talk through some of the scheduling in a minute, but kind of in a nutshell, back last year, the Board of Selectmen approved the contract award to Gilbane, and that included general conditions and fees of about $1.5 million. But besides pre-construction, nothing really has happened with that. So that contract was awarded but never executed because if you recall during the summer when we changed direction, we kind of agreed, well, let's not ink a contract if we're going to change this project. So as that went through its design and, re-estimating and our kind of repackaging of everything, we landed at a project that it works out pretty well because the general conditions that Gilbane charges for their oversight and management of the project actually come down slightly, even though the value of the project has gone up slightly. So that we're at a point now where we want to formalize our contract with them. So what Gilbane did is they went through their original RFP proposal, which was what was in your packet, and just kind of redlined it versus like, here's what was before, here's what's changed since then. Again, the general conditions, which are all their project management and labor, that price has gone down just a little bit. Their CM fee stays the same at 2.15%. So there's no reason to go back to the board because we're not exceeding any dollar value that was already approved. But I thought it was important that this committee actually, put their stamp of approval just to memorialize that we're all aware of where we are in the project and how we're proceeding. Equally as important is our new strategy and schedule. So we went from this kind of multi-year project that was very disruptive to we're kind of doing this surgically to not impact the building's operations. Originally, we were hoping to get it all done from summer of 25 and be done by the end of summer of 26 and be done by December 26. As Gilbane's team kind of worked through the estimate, worked through all the new project activities, even with the pre-buy going on now, realized that that really wasn't feasible. So what we're planning on doing now is doing some pre-work starting in February of 26. Again, still not interrupting the school. This would be second shift work. Then once we hit summer, that'll be our huge push. That's when we'll do our electrical shutdowns. That's when we'll do our abatement. And then we are still planning on turning over the gym and the auditorium at the end of December of 26. The school is allowing us to keep those areas as construction zones until then. But then we're going to need a couple months on the back end to finish up all the project activities. Again, second shift work. Some of the work that will happen in first shift in February, March are things that are like outside of the building or don't have any impact to the school. For example, we could start building out the new electrical room because that's on an exterior wall. We could start setting pads where we need to. There's going to be some steel work. I'm starting to talk outside my comfort zone. So why don't I pass that over to Nick and he could more accurately articulate those activities.
No, it's all good. Thanks, Ben. I apologize for jumping on late. Some connection issues over at New Neck River. I think we're out of internet right now, so I'm in my car in a hotspot. So I apologize for that.
No,
but
no, thank you. Yeah.
As Ben mentioned, schedule. We'll start in say February of 26 on site, and if I can share my screen with you here. This is an overall floor plan of the building. So as Ben mentioned, the new electrical room is back here. It's a storage room, rather large storage room off the cafeteria. I guess for your bearings, if you will. This is that sort of nook that's back behind the school now. So we'll be able to access, as Ben mentioned, this room. We cut in a new door. We'll be able to access it from the outside. We'll work through all those logistics with Ben and the school administrators. But we'll get this concrete slab out so that we can get some of the underground rough-in done for the new electrical switchgear. It's the main equipment for the entire building. We'll get that started in February, along with the cooling system, which is a VRF or fan coil system. And that is primarily in this wing here, this wing over here, this side of this wing here, and then a couple other smaller locations. The vast majority of, so what that work entails is essentially putting a unit up against the underside of the roof deck and running the piping for it. Piping's rather small, and the vast majority of those rooms and areas have open ceilings, meaning there's no drop ceiling, there's no drywall ceiling, it's open to deck. So we don't need to take ceilings out. All that work would be done at night. So we wouldn't need to take ceilings down to put our work in at the beginning of every shift and then put the ceilings back up every night and clean up. It'd be a pretty straightforward operation for us at night. Probably a couple of pipe fitters and one of our folks just sort of plodding along, trying to get as much work done before summer of 26 as we can, to sort of lighten the load from there until the end of the year. And then two other items for sort of the pre-summer 2026 work. We'll be installing some of the structural steel needed for some of the new rooftop units. It's primarily over here in the fitness area. Again, open ceiling areas that we can access from the exterior. There's a couple other locations that I think we may be able to get, but I'm not committing to that yet because they might be a bit more, they are more invasive. And if they're going to impact the school, even on second shift, it's something we'll just wait to do over the summer. But it's primarily the new equipment over in this location. And then the last item for the pre-work is all the electrical rough-in. So the electrical service from the utility company will essentially come into this room and then disperses from there. Due to the very limited height that you have between your finished ceiling that you see when you walk through the building and the roof deck above, we really can't run those electrical conduits in that interstitial space throughout the building. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out of this room up onto the roof and then run all the conduits on the roof. In some respects, it's an easier process, but it's a much more difficult material to work with. It's a different type of conduit. So again, that work is outside the building. It's up on the roof. And so getting that rough-in done before the summer of 2026 is also very advantageous. So those are really kind of the four areas of work. The rough-in on the roof and the work in the electrical room, we would look to do first shift, but again, coordinating logistics and adapting as we need to. Based on the school's needs, and then the steel work and the VRF work would occur off hours at night. Then as we get into summer 26, as Ben mentioned, that's really when the fun starts. So we'll be taking over the auditorium and the gymnasium. The auditorium has a lot more work to it, and it has more hazmats, so it has a longer schedule, a lot more work to do in a shorter amount, the same amount of time, but still a short amount of time. So the idea would be to take this over as soon as the kids leave in June of 26, start the abatement, and then turn it back over to you all by the end of the year, by the end of 26, and to do the same with the gymnasium. I think the gymnasium we can get done sooner than that. I'd like to think Thanksgiving, possibly even a little earlier, but I say that without having even started it yet. So the plan now is to turn that back over by the end of 26. But again, I think we can beat that. Also occurring over the summer of 26 would be replacing all of the mechanical units that are up on the one more drawing. This is the overall roof plan. I won't get too much detail, but you've got a lot of those penthouses that you can see from down below that are up on the roof. They all contain mechanical units that we're essentially replacing in a one-for-one scheme. So I can't take those out while school's in session because those provide heating, cooling, and most importantly, ventilation to the building. I can't take that away by code. So that work would occur over the summer. Take the old units out, get the new units in, and then by the end of summer, we've got the electrical room, which is right here, complete and the new service energized, and power to these units so that they're up and running for the first day of school in say August, September of 26. Once the kids come back to school in August, September of 26, we've completed the VRF. That's up and running. We've got work still occurring in the gymnasium and the auditorium, but the new units up on the roof are complete. And then like I said, the VRF system is running. By the end of the year, we're turning, as I mentioned, the auditorium and the gym over. And then I think we're going to bleed into and probably to the end of the first quarter of 2027, essentially just wrapping up loose ends. It's going to be an all-out push to get all that work done by the end of summer of 2026. So there are going to be a few items that linger that we'll take care of in the first few months of the academic year. But then as we wrap up the auditorium, I do think there's going to be a little bit of work throughout the building. We're just going to need to button up in the first couple of months of 27. So that's a rather high level review of the schedule.
And then
Stop there and ask if anyone has any questions or comments.
Nick, I know we'll talk about it, a bunch of times before then, but if we can just keep in touch on the gymnasium, because if that's offline beyond, say, mid-November, we'll have to make other plans for basketball for, the start of the year. That would
Okay.
be easier to have the auditorium offline longer if there's a way to
Okay.
prioritize that work.
Okay.
I appreciate that we're talking about it. It's,
Yep.
year and a half in advance.
Yeah. We can work around. I think we can work with that.
Yeah, I'd probably make alternate arrangements at this point because we do, we have advertised in the beginning that we want to keep that. My fear is like something like the bleachers don't come in or something like that, where some of those long lead time items that sometimes we're going to bid out the bleachers with the rest of this package, so they should be here within a year.
Yeah.
But we are doing really significant work to the gym and surrounding areas, so I wouldn't want to commit to November, but I think there is a real possible. I'd rather make alternative arrangements and then cancel those
Right.
alternative arrangements, right?
Yeah, I can. That's helpful. I can talk to Chris, and he can certainly, schedule more away games, say in the beginning of that season, and figure it out. They certainly can play at hand still, and have other opportunities. But it's good to know not to schedule a Guilford home game or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
And just from a procurement standpoint, should mention that we are Gilbane's going to be bidding out the rest of this project. So everything other than the equipment we're buying now, over the summer. So the intent is to have the GMP, the maximum price of the project, established in August or so. That will bring that'll go obviously to this committee and then to the Board of Selectmen. Also, the advanced procurement package, where the bids are coming back next week. Our intention is to bring this to this committee at our next meeting and then to the Board of Selectmen for award, because that'll be a multi-million-dollar equipment package.
Great.
Yeah. That's very impressive. Thank you, Nick. I mean, in your experience, what are the biggest sources of delays, and do we foresee any? And foresee is not the right word. What's the most likely bottleneck? Whether it be a generator, parts or whatever.
I think when I look at this schedule and the amount of work that we have to do and when we're doing it, my biggest concern is getting the building energized with the new electrical service. So if you think about the service you have now and the limited amount of HVAC you have in the building, when you add to it significantly, you got to increase the electrical service, right? So we're relying on Eversource. That's the biggest sort of wild card in getting a new building energized. More often than not, our electrical contractors are in good shape. It's just a matter of working through a utility company that, as you can imagine, isn't always the easiest to work with. But that's the biggest one, because again, if we don't have the building re-energized, and it's going to make running those new units up on the roof a bit more difficult. One advantage, though, of how this design of the electrical system was done is that because we're putting it in a new location instead of the existing location. If I was putting in the existing location, I got to take all that, de-energize the building, rip all that old equipment out. At that point, we've gone well past the point of return.
Yeah.
And if we don't have the building livened up, there's no school, right?
Yeah.
Come the end of August. So that's not a scenario we'd like to roll the dice on. So because we're putting it in a new location, we'll work out the contingency plan. But talking to a couple electrical contractors, we do feel confident that if for whatever reason we were held up at the end of the summer and getting the building re-energized, that we could make it work with the existing system. We wouldn't probably have the VRF system running in those 3 wings, but we should be able to get those rooftop units temped out and running if we absolutely had to. Now that's a fallback. We're not going to plan for it. We'll have contingency plans for it, but that's not going to be the primary plan. So that would be my biggest concern. Galen would just be getting the building re-energized.
I would not advertise. I know, like, we always want the headline. I would not advertise all classrooms will be cooled in August of 26. Because if that electrical component doesn't happen because of a utility delay, which Nick's absolutely right, that's the one component we can't fully control. and this project has been built around. So while we're relying on them, it's not going to be the end of the world if it doesn't happen. If the re-energy or the cut over to the new system doesn't happen. So just resist the urge, because I love to be able to be like, every room is going to be cooled by September of 26. Don't do that, just in case that happens. But what we can say is that the existing setup, with all those units on the roof and everything, like you're going to have no less cooling than you do right now. So if you have to use a tagline, let's say by the end of 26, that all the classrooms will be cooled. Because
I feel like that was directed at me, Ben.
no, never. Superintendents never do that. No, it's fine. Just what might happen is if we don't do that electrical cutover and some of the VRF work, we're not able to re-energize those units till later. They might not be fully commissioned until the spring anyway, because we can't really cut them over in the middle of winter and test all their cooling function. So we'll get them going in this, and that's why Nick was saying we want to have a couple months into 27 to wrap up that if necessary. Another important thing to note is when you're looking at Gilbane's general conditions, and because we're building all that into their contract, we're just working through the last pieces of that with the attorney right now. We hope to have that signed by the first select moment within the next week. If we don't use that, let's call it Gilbane time in March, then we don't get charged for it. If we need it, it's there. I'd rather have it in the schedule and in the budget and in the contract. But they don't want to be on the site any longer than they have to either. They got other stuff to do. So we worked with them on that, and I think that's a good arrangement to have.
I just had a question, Craig, for next summer, are we having an extra long summer like this to allow for or are we back to like a normal schedule?
Pretty much normal, because we're scheduled to end a little later because of this one.
Okay, yeah.
We haven't done next fall's calendar because I think we learned when we did the 2 years, or the following fall's calendar, because we did the 2 years, we didn't hit the right April break. We had to redo the calendar, remember?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it'll probably be more like a regular one. The good news is that it would just be Polson that would be worked on, versus, right now we have 3 schools being
every one of them
shut down.
Right.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
That'll be a breeze compared to. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Wow. Well, Nick, thank you. I think Town's in great hands with Gilbane. That was a really good walkthrough. All right. Is there anything else that we want to cover on the project, or should we move on to approval of invoices?
If you could, just for the record, just do a vote to approve the schedule and the conditions.
Okay. All right. Could we have a motion, please, to approve the amended schedule and conditions?
So moved.
All right. Second. All in favor? All right. Duly noted. Got it for the record.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's great.
All right. Approval of invoices. The first is to the BL companies, invoice 2302234-12, $1,900 for professional services from March 1st to the 28th of 2025. I'll just list them and then we can approve them in a bunch. How's that? Second is Langen, invoice number 1740, number 90031-837. Not quite sure the amount. It looks like there's a misplaced comma. It could be 32,300. There's on my.
No, there's an extra zero in there. Yeah, it's that
3,230.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. For the Polson Auditorium professional services from February 22nd to March 28th of 2025. And then the Big Kahuna, the Save More Cooling and Heating Unit, Heating and Company, invoice number 17506 for the amount of $2,136,674.21 for the train equipment. Do we have a motion to approve the invoices?
So moved.
All right, second and a vote. Aye.
All in favor.
Right.
Yep.
Motion passes. Yeah. All right. Raquel, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else that we'd like to cover or discuss? All right. Well, I just think this is a great record of progress, and it's very exciting. And thank you for covering the contingencies as well. It's a good discussion. So with that, let's go ahead and adjourn.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, Nick, for
No,
improvising.
listen, yeah, well, yeah, on the fly today, but no, it's been a good process. Last 6 or so months when Ben got involved and working with him and BL, it's been a collaborative effort. So looking forward to, we got a lot of work ahead of us, but looking forward to getting started, and glad we got a sound plan that everybody's on board with.
Good. All righty. All right. Have a great